My son had planned for me to cook for 45 people on Christmas without even including me at the head table. My daughter-in-law made it clear, with that same cold smile I had grown to know all too well, that I could eat in the kitchen after I was finished serving everyone. So on the morning of the 24th, I changed my plans. What happened next made Marcus shout in front of all his guests, "What? This can't be happening." If you have ever been treated as if you were invisible in your own family, if you have ever given everything and received only crumbs in return, stay with me until the end of this story. You can tell me then if I went too far. But first, let me tell you how we got to that point. Let me show you exactly what led me to make the most radical decision of my 66 years of life. It all started 3 weeks before Christmas. I was at my house, the same house where I raised my 2 sons, alone, ever since their father passed away 12 years ago. Marcus showed up without calling first. He walked in like he always did, with that confidence of a man who believes everything belongs to him, including my time and my very life. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't notice that I had just walked in from the grocery store, carrying 6 heavy bags at my age. He simply sat at my table, opened his laptop, and started talking like he was in a business meeting. "Mama, we're doing Christmas dinner differently this year," he said, without looking up from the screen. "Tiffany and I decided it's time to do something big, something memorable. We're inviting 45 people." 45 people. I dropped the bags on the floor. I felt a strange weight in my chest, but I didn't quite understand what was actually happening yet. "Oh, son, that's nice," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. "And where are you holding this dinner? Did you rent a hall?" Marcus looked at me as if I had just said something absurd, as if the answer were so obvious it didn't even require an explanation. "Right here, Mama. In your house, just like always." Just like always. Those words hit me like stones because he was right. It had always been in my house. It had always been me cooking. It had always been my invisible labor holding every family celebration together while everyone else took the credit. "But Marcus," I tried to keep my voice steady, 45 people is a lot. I usually cook for 10, maybe 15 at most. That's why I'm giving you plenty of notice," he interrupted, still staring at his laptop. "Tiffany already made the guest list. The senior partners from her law firm are coming, along with some of my important clients, family, and close friends. This is an incredible networking opportunity, Mama. We need everything to be perfect." Networking. Important clients. My family's Christmas dinner had turned into a corporate event, and nobody had even asked if I wanted to be a part of it. "And is Tiffany going to help with the cooking?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Marcus finally closed his laptop. He looked at me with that expression he used when he was a boy and wanted something, half pleading, half expecting me to say yes. "Mama, you know Tiffany isn't a cook. Besides, she's going to be busy hosting the guests, making sure everything flows smoothly. You're the one with the talent. Everyone always says your soul food is legendary." Everyone always says. But none of those people would be in the kitchen with me for 18 hours preparing the collard greens, the slow-roasted turkeys, the honey-glazed hams, the baked macaroni and cheese, and the sweet potato pies for 45 guests. None of them would be washing mountains of dishes at midnight while everyone else was giving toasts in the living room. "Marcus, I need to think about it," I said finally. "It's too much work for one person alone." His expression shifted. The pleading disappeared, and something harder took its place. "Think about it? Mama, it's already decided. We've already sent out the invitations. Everyone has confirmed. You can't back out now." It was already decided. They had sent the invitations. Not once had he asked if I was available, if I wanted to do it, or if I had other plans. They simply assumed that my life, my time, and my Christmas belonged to them. "I didn't decide anything, Marcus." My voice came out firmer than I expected. "You decided for me." He stood up and packed his laptop into his bag with sharp movements. "Don't start with the drama, Mama. It's just one dinner. You've done this your whole life. I don't see why it's a problem now." And there it was, the sentence that summarized everything. You've done this your whole life. As if that justified me doing it forever. As if my years, my exhaustion, and my own dreams didn't matter, because a pattern had already been set. "I need to know one thing," I said before he left. "Will I be at the main table? Will I be eating with you and the guests?" Marcus stopped at the door. He didn't look at me when he answered. "Well, Mama, you understand that space is limited. Tiffany organized the seating chart. The important guests need to be together for—" "Will I be at the table or not, Marcus?" Silence. A silence that hurt more than any word could. "You can eat afterward, Mama. Once everyone is served, Tiffany says it's better that way, more practical." More practical. I could eat in my own kitchen, in my own home, after serving 45 people, while my son and daughter-in-law played big-shot hosts to people who didn't even know my name. Marcus left without saying goodbye. I stood there in my kitchen, surrounded by grocery bags I hadn't even unpacked, feeling something break inside me. Something that had been cracking for years, finally shattered completely that day. I couldn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling of my bedroom, the same ceiling I had looked at for thousands of nights while planning birthdays, graduations, and Christmases for the last 30 years. It had always been me, always my house, always my invisible work, holding up everyone else's happiness. I thought about last Christmas. 14 people. I cooked from 5 in the morning until 8 at night. By the time I finally sat down to eat, the food was cold. Tiffany had taken photos of every dish and posted them on her social media with long captions about beautiful family traditions and the magic of the holidays. There wasn't a single mention of who had actually cooked the meal. Not a single photo of me. When someone commented asking for recipes, Tiffany replied, "They're family secrets passed down through generations," as if she had anything to do with it. I thought about Marcus's birthday 6 months ago. 40 guests. I made 3 types of meat, sides, and a 3-tier cake. Tiffany wore a spectacular wine-colored dress and greeted everyone at the door as the perfect hostess. When the party ended and the last guest left at 2 in the morning, she went to bed. I stayed up washing dishes until 4:30. The next day, Marcus gave me $250 for the trouble and told me I shouldn't have worked so hard, as if my effort were optional, as if I had chosen to stay awake for 20 hours straight. I thought about the graduation of Isaiah, my younger son, 3 years ago. I paid for the entire banquet because Isaiah had just started working and had no money. $800 from my savings. Marcus gave the speech in front of everyone, talking about family sacrifice and unconditional support. Everyone applauded. I was in the kitchen making sure there was enough ice. Nobody mentioned where the money for that party had come from. I got up at 3 in the morning and went down to the kitchen. I pulled out an old notebook where I kept track of expenses. I started adding up Christmases, birthdays, graduations, and Sunday brunches from the last 10 years. Ingredients, decorations, and my time calculated at a modest minimum wage, because I didn't even dare to value my work as that of a professional chef. The total took my breath away. $74,000, nearly $60,000 out of my pocket, and my labor for celebrations, where I was treated like invisible service staff. At 7 in the morning, my doorbell rang. It was Hattie Wandless, my neighbor and friend of 20 years. We met when she moved in next door, newly divorced with 2 small children. I brought her dinner that first week, and she never forgot it. Hattie walked in with her usual energy, but her smile faded when she saw my face. "What happened? You look terrible." I told her everything. The 45 people, the main table where I wasn't included, the "you can eat in the kitchen later" comment, Tiffany organizing my house as if it were hers, Marcus assuming my labor 3 weeks in advance. Hattie didn't say anything for several minutes. She poured herself some coffee, sat across from me, and then spoke with that brutal clarity only a true friend can afford. "Ruby Lovelace, when was the last time they did something for you?" The question hit me hard. I tried to think. I searched my memory for any recent moment where Marcus or Tiffany had organized something for me, celebrated me, or taken into account what I needed or wanted. "My birthday," I said finally, 8 months ago." "Did they bring anything?" Did they cook? Did they take you anywhere? Silence. The truth was, I had cooked. They arrived with a $20 bouquet of flowers and a card. They ate. They left early because Tiffany had a meeting the next day. They are using you, Hattie said bluntly. And the worst part is, you already know it. You've known it for years, but this time they crossed the line. This time they crossed a line that cannot be ignored. She was right. I knew it. But admitting it out loud meant having to do something about it. It meant breaking the pattern. It meant disappointing my son. And my whole life had revolved around not disappointing my children. I can't just say no, I said weakly. They already sent the invitations. People have already confirmed. If I don't cook, they'll look bad. They will look bad, Hattie repeated. Them, not you. They made the decision without asking you. They are the ones who will have to face the consequences. But I was still trapped in that mental prison I had been building for decades, brick by brick. The prison of maternal sacrifice. The prison of family comes first. The prison of a good mother is always available. Hattie leaned over the table and took my hands. Do you know what hurts me most about all this? That they are stealing your own Christmas from you. You deserve to enjoy that night too. You deserve to sit at a beautiful table, toast with people who value you, and eat something delicious that someone else prepared for you. When was the last time you had a real Christmas? I couldn't answer because the tears started to fall. Hattie was right. I hadn't had a real Christmas in over 30 years. I had always been the one serving everyone else's Christmas, creating the magic so others could enjoy it, exhausting myself so others could rest. You have to do something, Hattie insisted. Something that makes them understand that your life doesn't belong to them, that your time has value, that your presence is a gift, not an obligation. 2 days later, Marcus returned. This time he brought Tiffany, and they had a laptop full of spreadsheets and schedules. They sat in my living room like executives presenting a project. Tiffany pulled out a printed list, 16 pages long. Detailed menus for 45 people with vegetarian, gluten-free, and dairy-free options. 3 people with specific allergies. 1 guest who didn't eat pork, another who needed everything organic. I did a complete research on the dietary preferences, Tiffany said with professional pride. We need everything to be perfect, Ruby. The partners at my firm are very demanding. Ruby, she didn't even call me Mom. To her, I was just the hired help. I calculated that you'll need to start cooking on the 20th of December, she continued, flipping through pages. Some dishes can be made in advance. The turkey, obviously, on the day of. I projected that you'll need approximately 12 hours on the 24th. I've organized the kitchen flow for maximum efficiency. 12 hours. On Christmas Eve. My Christmas reduced to 12 hours of forced labor to impress my daughter-in-law's bosses. Marcus noticed my silence. He interpreted my lack of response as confusion, not the indignation it actually was. Mama, I know it sounds like a lot of work, but think of it this way. It's an investment in my career. Tiffany is about to become a partner at her firm. These contacts could change our future, and you are a fundamental part of that success. A fundamental part. What an elegant way to say free labor. Tiffany added something that finally snapped what little patience I had left. Besides, Ruby, I've thought about the logistics of the night. Since you'll be busy in the kitchen, it doesn't make sense for you to waste time going back and forth to the dining room. I'm going to set up a small table here in the kitchen for you. That way you can eat while you keep an eye on everything to make sure it keeps running. It's more practical. A table in the kitchen, in my own house, so I could eat alone while 45 people enjoyed the work of my hands in my dining room. And where are all 45 people going to sit? I asked, my voice strangely calm. We're going to rent tables and chairs, Marcus explained. We'll put them in the living room, the dining room, and part of the backyard. I already spoke with the rental company. They're coming on the 23rd in the afternoon to set everything up. They were going to turn my house into an event venue without asking me, without including me, using my space as a free resource for their social ambitions. And how much do you think all this food is going to cost? I asked. Marcus and Tiffany exchanged a look. Tiffany pulled out another sheet. I made an approximate budget. With quality ingredients, we estimate about $2,200. Obviously, we are going to cover the costs. Ruby, we don't expect you to pay for anything. How generous. They were going to pay for the ingredients for the food I would cook for free for days. My work, my time, and my Christmas apparently had no price. Only the ingredients deserved financial compensation. What is my labor worth? The words came out before I could stop them. The silence in the room was uncomfortable. Marcus shifted in his seat. Tiffany frowned, as if I had said something inappropriate. Mama, it's not work, Marcus said finally. It's family. It's what you've always done. Nobody is asking you for anything you haven't given voluntarily before. Voluntarily, as if I ever had a real choice to say no, as if 30 years of expectations hadn't built an invisible cage around my freedom. Besides, Tiffany added in that condescending tone I hated so much, you're going to get credit. I'm going to tell everyone that you cooked. Your name is going to be in the conversations. My name would be in the conversations while I was hidden in the kitchen. What an honor. What a profound recognition. They left half an hour later, leaving the 16 pages of instructions on my table, schedules, shopping lists, dietary specifications, everything planned meticulously, except for one small detail. Nobody had asked me if I wanted to participate in this circus. That night, I called Isaiah, my younger son. He had always been different from Marcus, more sensitive, more aware. He lived in another state, but we talked often. Mama, that is insane, he said after hearing the whole story. Marcus really told you to eat in the kitchen? Tiffany organized it that way. Marcus didn't say a word against it. Isaiah sighed deeply. I could hear suppressed anger in his voice. Mama, you have to tell them no. This isn't normal anymore. This is pure exploitation. But they already sent the invitations, Isaiah. 45 people have already confirmed. That is their problem, Mama, not yours. They created this mess without your consent. Let them solve it. But I was still terrified. Terrified of disappointing them, terrified of being selfish, terrified of breaking that role of the selfless mother I had played for decades until I forgot who I was beneath the character. The following days were strange. Marcus sent me constant messages with updates. 3 more people confirmed. Now it's 48. Tiffany got the 2 senior partners of her firm to come. This is going to be epic, Mama. Epic for them. Slavery for me. Hattie came over every afternoon. She found me in the kitchen, staring at the 16 pages of instructions with a lost expression. Have you decided what you're going to do? She asked every time. And every time, I gave the same answer. I don't know. I can't tell them no at this stage. Until one afternoon, Hattie had enough. She slammed the folder of instructions shut. Ruby, listen to me. Do you remember 5 years ago when you got sick? When you had pneumonia and were in the hospital for 4 days? Of course I remembered. It was horrible. I couldn't breathe. I was so scared. Do you remember what happened with Thanksgiving dinner that year? The one you always organized? I stayed silent. I did remember. I was in the hospital. I apologized from my bed, hooked up to oxygen, feeling guilty for ruining everyone's plans. Marcus ordered food from a restaurant, I recalled. Tiffany organized everything at their house. They had the dinner perfectly without me. Exactly, Hattie said, staring at me. They functioned just fine without you. So why do you think this time is different? They can solve this. They have money, they have contacts, they can hire a catering service, they can rent a hall, they have 1,000 options. What they don't have is the right to force you to sacrifice your own Christmas for their social ambitions. Something started to stir inside me, something that had been asleep for far too long. Do you remember what you told me 2 years ago? Hattie continued. You told me that when your husband was alive, you both dreamed of spending a Christmas at the beach, just the 2 of you, watching the sunset, no cooking, no cleaning, just resting. The tears began to fall. Yes, I had said that. We had planned it. We were going to do it when the kids were older, when we had more savings, when there was time. But there was never time, and then he died, and the dream died with him. You're 66 years old, Ruby. How many more Christmases do you think you have left? How many more are you going to waste serving people who don't even respect you enough to let you sit at their table? That night, after Hattie left, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my computer and searched for hotels on the coast, places that served Christmas dinner, where I could sit at a beautiful table overlooking the ocean and eat food that someone else had prepared for me. I found a 5-star resort. They had a special Christmas package. 3 nights, all meals included. A gala dinner on the 24th. The price was high, $1,500 for the 3 nights. Almost all the money I had saved from my pension over the last 4 months, money I had carefully put away for emergencies, for birthday gifts, for those little things one always needs. I stared at the photos of the resort for hours. Bright rooms with balconies facing the sea, an elegant restaurant with decorated tables, older people like me, smiling, relaxed, enjoying themselves, a huge pool, a private beach, holiday activities, live music, everything I had never allowed myself because there was always someone else who needed that money more than me. I closed the computer. It was crazy. I couldn't spend $1,500 on myself. It was selfish. It was irresponsible. It was the exact opposite of everything a good mother is supposed to be. But the web page stayed open in my mind. Those images of freedom, of rest, of being served instead of serving, of having a Christmas that was truly mine. The next day, Sunday, Marcus arrived early. He brought Tiffany and their 2 children, my grandchildren, ages 7 and 9. I hadn't seen them in 3 weeks because they were always too busy. The children hugged me briefly before running to the backyard with their tablets. Tiffany was checking her phone. Marcus seemed nervous. "Mama, I need to talk to you about something important," he said, sitting on the sofa. My stomach tightened. Now that the partners from Tiffany's firm have confirmed they're coming, this is huge for us, really huge. Tiffany could get the partnership before the end of the year if this night goes perfectly. I waited. I knew there was more. "So, we need to make some adjustments to the menu." Tiffany talked to the wife of one of the partners, and it turns out she's an amateur chef. She has a very popular food blog. She's going to be evaluating everything with a critical eye. An amateur chef with a blog. Wonderful. Now my food was going to be publicly judged by a culinary influencer while I sweated in the kitchen, excluded from my own celebration. Tiffany looked up from her phone for the first time. I researched her blog. She's very demanding, very detailed. We need every dish to be impeccable, Ruby. No mistakes. This can't just be common home cooking. It has to be restaurant level. Restaurant level, made by me alone in my home kitchen for 48 people, for free. "And if I hire help?" I suggested weakly. "Someone to assist me in the kitchen. I'll pay half, you pay the other half." Marcus shook his head immediately. "No, Mama, we're already spending so much on the rental of tables, chairs, and decorations. Besides, nobody cooks like you. Bringing someone else in would ruin the authenticity of the event." The authenticity of the event. My slavery disguised as an authentic family tradition. Tiffany added something that left me speechless. "Besides, Ruby, think of this as your Christmas gift to Marcus and me. We don't expect anything material from you. Your effort on this dinner is more valuable than anything you could buy. My Christmas gift to them. Days of grueling work, my house invaded, my celebration canceled, my dignity trampled, all wrapped with a bow and presented as a generous gift from me." Something inside me clicked. It was an almost audible sound, like a string that had been pulled too tight for too long finally snapping. "I need to think about it," I said, my voice firm. Marcus's expression changed instantly. The pleading disappeared, and irritation took its place. "Think about it? Mama, there are 10 days left until Christmas. There's no more time to think about it. I need an answer now. Are you going to do the dinner or not?" The ultimatum, direct, without any pretense of politeness. "I already told you I need to think about it, Marcus." Tiffany stood up and called the children. Her body language was pure, suppressed indignation. "I can't believe you're being so difficult with this," Marcus said, standing up as well, "after everything we've done for you." That sentence hit me like a slap. Everything we've done for you. I tried to remember. I searched my memory for any great sacrifice Marcus had made for me in recent years. "What exactly have you done for me?" The question came out harsher than I intended. Marcus looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "We visit you often. The kids love you. We include you in the family. We haven't left you alone." They included me in the family, as if my place in my own family were a favor they were granting me, as if I should be grateful that they allowed me to exist on the periphery of their lives. "I need to think about it," I repeated. "I'll give you an answer tomorrow." They left angry. Tiffany didn't even say goodbye. The kids were so absorbed in their screens they barely noticed they were leaving. Marcus gave me a look of deep disappointment before closing the door. I stayed alone in my living room, surrounded by silence, feeling that internal click resonate louder and louder. I called Hattie. I needed to hear a friendly voice before doing what I was about to do. "I'm going to do it," I told her when she answered. "I'm going to book the hotel." I heard her shout of joy on the other end of the line. "Seriously? You're really going to do it?" "I'm scared," I admitted. "I'm so scared, Hattie, of hurting them, of being selfish, of making a terrible mistake." "Ruby, listen to me." Her voice turned serious. "You aren't hurting them. They hurt themselves with their unfair expectations. You aren't being selfish. They are the selfish ones for assuming your life belongs to them. And the only terrible mistake would be staying here and sacrificing your happiness once again, reinforcing this toxic pattern that has consumed you for decades." She was right. I knew it deep down. But the fear was still there, coiled in my stomach like a snake. "What if they never forgive me?" I whispered. "And what if they finally respect you?" Hattie replied. "What if this is the only way for them to understand that your love isn't infinite when it's treated like an obligation? Sometimes, Ruby, the greatest love we can give is the one we refuse to give away for free." That night, I opened my computer again. I looked at the photos of the resort one last time. The beach, the restaurant, the rooms, the promise of a Christmas that would finally be mine. I pulled out my credit card. My hands were shaking as I entered the details. 3 nights, from December 23rd to the 26th. Ocean view room, full Christmas package. My finger hovered over the confirm button. This was the point of no return. Once I pressed that button, everything would change. There would be no going back. I thought about the 16 pages of instructions on my table. I thought about Tiffany's voice saying, "You can eat in the kitchen after serving everyone." I thought about Marcus telling me that my labor was my Christmas gift to them. I thought about 30 years of silent sacrifices that no one had ever truly valued. I pressed the button. The confirmation appeared on the screen. Reservation confirmed, a charge of $1,500, a receipt in my email, a confirmation code. I stared at the screen for several long minutes. There was something different in my chest. It wasn't guilt yet. It was something strange and unknown, something I hadn't felt in decades. It was freedom, small, fragile, terrifying, but real. The next morning, Marcus called early. "Did you think about it, Mama? I need to confirm to Tiffany that everything is in order." I took a deep breath. The words I had practiced all night refused to come out, but I had to say them. It was now or never. "Marcus, I am not going to cook Christmas dinner." Absolute silence on the other end. I could feel his shock coming through the phone line. "What did you say?" "I said I am not going to cook for 48 people. You didn't ask me if I wanted to do it. You simply assumed, and I am not available." "Mama, this can't be real. You're joking, right?" "I am not joking, Marcus. Whatever decision you make about your dinner, I will not be participating." His voice went up 3 octaves. "You won't be participating? Mama, this is ridiculous. Everything is already organized. 48 people have confirmed. What are we supposed to do now?" "I don't know, Marcus, but I'm sure you'll find a solution. You are successful adults with resources. You can hire a catering service, you can book a restaurant, you can order food. You have many options. Options cost money. A lot of money. Do you have any idea how much a caterer for 48 people cost with 10 days' notice during the Christmas season? There it was, the truth, finally. It wasn't about family tradition. It wasn't about my special talent in the kitchen. It was about money. I was the free option, the convenient option, the option that was taken for granted. Marcus, if you can spend money on renting elegant tables and chairs and expensive decorations to impress Tiffany's partners, then you can spend money on food, or you can reduce the guest list to something manageable and cook yourselves. We don't know how to cook for that many people. Neither should I have to, Marcus. Not at 66 years old, not alone, not without even having a place at the table you're organizing in my own house. I heard voices in the background. Tiffany had arrived. Marcus was telling her. I heard her scream of indignation, even through the phone. "Give me the phone!" Tiffany's voice sounded furious. "Ruby, what on earth is going on? Marcus says you're refusing to cook. This has to be a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding, Tiffany. I simply am not going to cook for your event." "My event? This is the family Christmas dinner. Your family." "A family dinner where I don't have a place at the main table? Where I'm supposed to eat alone in the kitchen after serving everyone? That doesn't sound like family to me, Tiffany. It sounds like service staff." "You're exaggerating everything. I told you that you could eat in the kitchen for practicality so you wouldn't have to keep going back and forth. I was thinking of your comfort." It was incredible how she could twist reality, how she could turn my exclusion into a favor she was doing for me. "Tiffany, if it's so practical and comfortable, I'm sure you wouldn't mind eating in the kitchen yourself, would you?" Icy silence. "That is completely different," she finally said, her voice tight. "I am the hostess. I need to be with the guests." "In my house," I reminded her. "You are the hostess in my house, using my space, my kitchen, and my labor. But I am the one eating and hiding. Do you not see how absurd that is?" "You are selfish," Tiffany's voice cracked into a scream. "A selfish, ungrateful woman. After everything Marcus does for you, after we included you in our lives, this is how you pay us back?" "If including me means using me, I prefer to be excluded," I replied with a calmness that surprised even me. Tiffany hung up. The silence after that call was deafening. I sat in my kitchen, my heart beating wildly, my hands still shaking. I had done it. I had finally done it. I had said no. The following 2 days were a nightmare of calls, messages, and attempts at emotional manipulation. Marcus called me crying, telling me I was letting him down at the most important moment of his career. Tiffany sent me long messages about family responsibility and generational obligations. Even the kids sent me voice messages asking why Grandma was ruining Christmas. Isaiah called me from out of state. "Mama, Marcus told me, I am so proud of you." Those words broke me. I started to cry. I had been holding back the tears for days, trying to stay firm, but hearing pride instead of disappointment completely disarmed me. "Isaiah, am I a bad mother?" I asked through sobs. "Am I selfish for doing this?" "Mama, listen to me. You have been the best mother anyone could ask for. You've given everything. You've sacrificed everything. And that is precisely why it's time for someone to take care of you. If Marcus can't understand that, that's his problem, not yours. You deserve a happy Christmas. You deserve to rest. You deserve to be treated with dignity." He says I'm going to ruin his career, that Tiffany won't get the partnership because of me. Isaiah let out a bitter laugh. "Mama, if Marcus's career depends on exploiting you, then his career deserves to fail. And if Tiffany loses a partnership because she can't organize a dinner without using you as a slave, then she doesn't deserve that partnership. Their professional lives are not your responsibility. Your well-being is." After hanging up with Isaiah, I felt a little stronger, but the bombardment of messages continued. Distant relatives that Tiffany had recruited wrote to me saying I was being dramatic. A cousin called to tell me that mothers always sacrifice everything for their children. An aunt sent me a long message about how, in her day, women weren't so selfish. Hattie came over every night. She found me exhausted, doubting, on the verge of giving in. "You cannot give in now," she told me. "You've already taken the hardest step. If you back down now, they will know they can pressure you until you break. They will know there is no limit they cannot cross." She was right, but it was so hard to stay firm when the whole world seemed to be telling me I was the villain of this story. On December 20th, Marcus appeared at my door. He hadn't called, he just showed up. He looked terrible, red eyes, unshaven, wrinkled clothes. "Mama, please," he said, as soon as I opened the door. "I'm begging you, don't do this. Tiffany is having panic attacks. The partners have already confirmed. We can't cancel now. We'll look like idiots in front of very important people." "Marcus, sit down," I said, pointing to the sofa. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to really listen to me." He sat. He looked like a scared child. For a moment, I felt that maternal impulse to comfort him, to tell him everything would be okay, to solve his problem like I had done 1,000 times before. But I held back, because that was exactly the pattern I needed to break. "Marcus, do you know how much money I have spent on family celebrations in the last 10 years? I pulled out my notebook, where I had done the math. $74,000. Not counting my labor, which, if I calculated it at market price, would be another $40,000. That's nearly $100,000 of my time, my money, and my effort." Marcus stared at the notebook without saying anything. "Do you know how many times in those 10 years you two organized something for me? How many times you invited me to a restaurant where I didn't have to cook? How many times you gave me a real day off?" Silence. 3 times, Marcus. 3 times in 10 years, and on 2 of those occasions, I ended up cooking anyway because you showed up unannounced with friends and had no food prepared. "Mama, I didn't—" "Let me finish." My voice was firm, but not angry. "When your father died, you both told me you would take care of me, that I would never be alone, that family was the most important thing. And I believed you. I spent the last 12 years putting family first, always, without exception. I canceled trips, I spent my savings, I sacrificed my time, my health, and my own dreams, all for the family." Tears started to roll down my cheeks, but I continued. "But family does not mean unilateral sacrifice, Marcus. Family means reciprocity. Family means mutual consideration. And what you are asking of me is not family love. It is exploitation disguised as tradition." "We didn't want you to feel this way," Marcus finally spoke, his voice cracking. "I thought you liked cooking for us. I thought it made you happy." "I liked it when it was appreciated, when it was voluntary, when I had a voice and a vote. But this—" I pointed to the 16 pages of instructions still on the table. "This is not love. This is a work project assigned to me without consultation. And the part about eating alone in the kitchen while everyone else enjoys themselves, that was the breaking point." "Tiffany was trying to be efficient," he said weakly. "Tiffany was trying to keep me invisible. She wanted the benefits of my labor without the discomfort of acknowledging my humanity. And you allowed it, Marcus. You didn't say anything. You didn't defend me. You acted like it was normal for your mother to be treated like hired help in her own home." Marcus covered his face with his hands. His shoulders were shaking. "What am I going to do, Mama? How am I going to solve this?" And there it was again, the plea for me to solve his problem, for me to sacrifice my well-being to save his reputation. "I don't know, Marcus, but I know it is not my problem to solve. You two created this situation. You two solve it." Marcus stayed silent for several minutes. I could see his mind working, looking for angles, trying to find the right words to convince me. He was a good salesman. He always had been. But this time, I wasn't buying. "What if we pay you?" he said finally. "What if we compensate you financially for your work? Let's say $2,000 cash in addition to the ingredients." $2,000. He was putting a price on me, reducing the entire complexity of the situation to a commercial transaction. Marcus, this is not about money. 3,000 then. Mama, be reasonable. Tell me what you need to make this work. I need you to see me. The words came out heavy with years of pain. I need you to treat me like your mother, not your employee. I need you to understand that my time has value, that my presence is a gift, and that my love is not an infinite resource you can extract from without limits. I do see you, Mama. I value you, seriously. Do you? Then why, when Tiffany suggested I eat in the kitchen, did you say nothing? Why didn't it strike you as horrible that your own mother would be excluded from the main table in her own house? Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer, because the truth was, he hadn't thought about it. He hadn't considered my feelings, because my comfort had never been part of the equation. It was a mistake, he said finally. A terrible mistake. But Mama, I can't cancel now. I literally can't. Tiffany's partners, my most important clients. Everyone will be there. If we cancel at the last minute, we'll look unprofessional, like people who don't keep their commitments. You are people who don't keep their commitments, I told him. The commitment to your mother, the commitment to treat me with respect, the commitment to consider my needs. Those commitments you broke a long time ago. He stood up. The desperation on his face was real, but something in me had hardened. I had crossed an internal line, and I wasn't going to go back. So what? You're just going to stay here alone on Christmas while we deal with this mess you helped create? The accusation in his voice hurt, but it also confirmed that I had made the right decision. I am not going to stay here alone on Christmas, Marcus. I am going to the beach. I am going to stay at a beautiful hotel. I am going to eat food that someone else prepared for me. I am going to watch the sunset over the ocean. I am going to do all the things your father and I dreamed of doing together, but never could because there was always something more important. There was always someone else who needed my time. Marcus looked at me as if I had just announced I was joining the circus. The beach? At Christmas? Alone? Not alone, Marcus. With myself, which is very different. This is crazy. Are you having some kind of crisis? It's not a crisis, it's clarity. For the first time in decades, I have absolute clarity about what I deserve and what I will no longer tolerate. He left, slamming the door. I heard his car tear away in anger. The silence that followed was immense. I sat on the sofa and breathed deeply. Every difficult conversation was costing me pieces of my heart, but it was also freeing me. It was a necessary pain, like cleaning an infected wound. It hurts, but it's the only way to heal. Hattie arrived 20 minutes later. She had seen Marcus's car leave. How was it? Terrible. He offered me money. He told me I was having a crisis. He blamed me for the mess they created. Hattie sat beside me and took my hand. Ruby, do you know what the saddest part of all this is? That Marcus really doesn't understand what he did wrong. In his mind, he was including you in something important. He was giving you a role. He can't see that the role was degrading because he's never had to experience what it feels like to be invisible. She was right. Marcus had grown up being the center of attention, the oldest son, the successful one, the one everyone admired. He had never experienced what it was like to work hard and have nobody notice, to give everything and receive crumbs disguised as gratitude. The next 2 days were quieter. Marcus didn't call. Tiffany didn't either. I started to pack. Swimsuits I hadn't used in years, light dresses, sandals, a book I had been wanting to read for months, sunscreen, everything necessary for my little adventure of freedom. Isaiah called me on the night of the 22nd. Mama, Marcus called me. He's furious. He says you ruined his Christmas. I know. He also told me you're going to the beach, that you left a confirmed reservation. That's right. Isaiah laughed, a genuine laugh full of joy. Mama, I am so proud of you, so incredibly proud. I wish I could be there with you. I wish you were here too, baby, but your family needs you there. It's your first Christmas with your wife and daughter. Enjoy it. Are you sure you want to go alone? I can send money so you can take Hattie with you. I need to do this alone, Isaiah. I need to prove to myself that I can, that after so many years defined by my role as a mother, there is still a Ruby underneath there. I need to get to know her again. There was an emotional silence on the other end. I love you, Mama. And just so you know, what you did isn't selfishness. It's survival. It's dignity. It is exactly what you had to do. The morning of the 23rd dawned clear and beautiful. I finished packing my small suitcase. I checked the house one last time. I filled the fridge with simple food just in case I was hungry when I returned. I left everything clean and orderly, and then I did something that I know was harsh, but it was necessary. I wrote a brief, direct note. I stuck it to the refrigerator door with a magnet. I went to fulfill my Christmas dream. I hope you managed to resolve the event on the 24th. There are numbers for catering services in the kitchen drawer, or you can cancel and be honest with your guests. I will return when I feel like it. Ruby. I didn't leave a hotel number. I didn't leave a way to contact me. I turned off my phone before leaving the house. I put the suitcase in my old car and drove toward the coast. It was a 4-hour drive. 4 hours where my mind oscillated between the euphoria of freedom and the terror of the consequences. What would be happening at Marcus's house? When would they find my note? What would they do? But every time the fear threatened to make me turn around, I thought of that sentence from Tiffany. She can eat in the kitchen after serving everyone. I thought of years of being invisible, of unacknowledged sacrifices, of love taken for granted until it became an obligation. And I kept driving. The resort was even more beautiful than it looked in the photos. Palm trees swaying in the breeze, the constant sound of the sea, relaxed people walking in beachwear. Everything felt like another world, a world where I wasn't a mother or a grandmother or a cook or a servant. I was just Ruby Lovelace, a 66-year-old woman who deserved a vacation. The check-in was simple. The receptionist smiled at me with genuine warmth. "Mrs. Lovelace, welcome. You have a beautiful room on the 3rd floor with a balcony facing the ocean. The restaurant serves gala dinner tomorrow at 8 in the evening. Traveling alone?" "Yes," I replied. And for the first time, that word didn't sound sad. It sounded powerful. "Wonderful. We hope you enjoy your stay. Merry Christmas in advance." I went up to my room, opened the door, and the sea air rushed in. The balcony looked straight out over the beach. The sunset was beginning, painting the sky in orange, pink, and violet. It was the kind of beauty that reminds you that the world is huge and that your problems, painful as they are small in comparison. I sat on the balcony, breathed in the salty air, and for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. My phone was still off at the bottom of my bag. I didn't know what was happening at Marcus's house. I didn't know if they had found my note. I didn't know how they were reacting. And in that moment, looking at the infinite ocean in front of me, I realized something liberating. I didn't care. Or rather, I cared, but not enough to sacrifice this moment of peace that I had so desperately needed. That night, I dined in the hotel restaurant, a small table with a view of the sea, an attentive waiter who brought me water without me having to ask, a menu where I could choose whatever I wanted without thinking about budgets or the preferences of others. I ordered garlic shrimp, a fresh salad, a glass of white wine, and a chocolate dessert. Simple but delicious food. And most importantly, food that I hadn't prepared, food that someone else had cooked for me with care and attention. As I ate, I watched the other people in the restaurant, older couples holding hands, families with small children, some solo travelers like me, reading books or simply enjoying the view. Nobody knew me there. Nobody expected anything from me. I was just another woman enjoying her vacation. The morning of the 24th, I woke up to the sound of the waves. For a moment, in that confusion between sleep and wakefulness, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered everything: the fight, the decision, the trip. And instead of the knot of anxiety I expected to feel, I found something like tranquility. I got up slowly. There were no alarms, no to-do lists waiting for me. There was no giant turkey to thaw, no mountain of vegetables to chop, no impossible schedule to meet. I went out on the balcony with my coffee. The sea was calm. Some people were already walking on the beach. An older man was exercising. A young couple was looking for shells. Everything moved at a slow pace, without urgency. I thought about what would be happening in my house at this moment. Marcus would have gone early to supervise the arrival of the tables and chairs. He probably found my note last night or early this morning. I imagined his face upon reading it, the disbelief, the rage, the panic. Part of me, that maternal part that still beat strong after so many years, wanted to turn on the phone. It wanted to know if they were okay, if they had found a solution, if they hated me. But the part of me that had finally woken up, the part that had been asleep for decades under layers of self-denial and sacrifice, reminded me why I was here. It reminded me that they were adults, capable adults. They had resources. This problem was theirs, not mine. I left the phone off. I had breakfast in the hotel restaurant, fresh fruit, freshly baked bread, eggs prepared exactly how I liked them. The waiter was a kind young man who asked if I was enjoying my stay. "It's my first time traveling alone," I told him, without knowing why I felt the need to share it. "And how is it?" he asked with genuine curiosity. "Terrifying," I admitted, "but also liberating." He smiled with understanding. My mom did the same thing a few years ago. After 30 years of marriage and raising 4 kids, she took a trip alone for the first time. She said it was the most important experience of her life, that she found herself again. His words gave me an unexpected comfort. I wasn't alone in this. There were other women who had made this same kind of radical decision, who had chosen dignity over family comfort. I spent the morning on the beach. I brought my book, but I barely opened it. I was too absorbed in watching the sea, feeling the sand between my toes, listening to the hypnotic rhythm of the waves. Around noon, an older woman sat near me. She had to be at least 75, but she moved with a vibrant energy. She wore a huge coral-colored hat and sunglasses with rhinestones. "Beautiful day," she said, smiling. "Beautiful," I agreed. "First time here?" "Oh, I've been coming every year since I was widowed 7 years ago. Family Christmas got complicated after my husband died. Too many expectations, too much drama. So I decided to create my own tradition." I stared at her. It was like seeing a future version of myself, a version that had found peace. "Don't they miss you? Your family?" "At first, they were furious," she said with a laugh. "My daughters called me selfish. My grandkids didn't understand why Grandma wouldn't be there at Christmas. But you know what? After the first year, something changed. They started to value my presence when I chose to give it. They started inviting me to things on my terms. And I discovered I was much happier being a grandmother by choice than by obligation." Her words resonated in my chest like bells. "Did you ever doubt your decision?" "Every minute of the first trip," she admitted. "I was on the verge of going back about 5 times. But I forced myself to stay, and when I went back home after those days of peace, I was a different woman, a woman who finally understood her own value." We talked for over an hour. She told me about her daughters, her grandchildren, and how eventually the relationships were repaired, but on healthier terms. She said something I will never forget. "Sometimes the greatest act of love we can give is to teach others how to treat us. And sometimes that requires discomfort." When she left, I stayed thinking about her words, teaching others how to treat us. My whole life, I had taught Marcus that he could use my time without consequences, that he could take my love for granted, that my presence was an infinite resource. I was changing that lesson late, but not too late. The afternoon passed slowly and sweetly. I swam in the pool. I took a nap in my room. I read chapters of my book. I did all those little things I had always wanted to do, but never had time for because there was always something more urgent to attend to. At 6, I started getting ready for the gala dinner. The hotel had announced it would be something special. Live music, Christmas decorations, a 4-course menu. As I dressed, I thought about what would be happening at my house at this moment. 6 in the evening. The guests would be starting to arrive in 2 hours. The kitchen should be full of aromas, of food almost ready, of frantic activity. But it wasn't, because I wasn't there. I imagined Marcus and Tiffany running back and forth. Maybe they had managed to get some last-minute food. Maybe they had canceled. Maybe they were serving pizza to 48 people while making up excuses. I felt a pang of guilt, but I also felt something stronger. Justice. Not revenge. Justice. The natural consequence of years of lack of consideration. I went down to the restaurant at 8 sharp. They had assigned me a table by the window. The place was beautifully decorated. Warm Christmas lights, candles on every table, a huge tree in the corner. The waiter brought me complimentary champagne. "Merry Christmas," he said with a smile. "Merry Christmas," I replied, and for the first time in years, the words felt true. The dinner was extraordinary. It began with a creamy and delicate seafood bisque, then a salad with caramelized pears and walnuts. The main course was a perfectly cooked steak with roasted vegetables, and for dessert, a raspberry mousse that melted in your mouth. Every bite was a celebration, not just of the flavors, but of freedom, of being seated at a beautiful table, of being served with respect and attention, of not having to get up between courses to check something in the kitchen. Halfway through dinner, the hotel brought in a jazz band. They played Christmas classics. The Christmas song, Silent Night. The music filled the space with warmth and joy. I looked around the restaurant, families sharing, couples toasting, solo travelers like me enjoying their own company. Everyone celebrating in their own way, everyone creating their own versions of Christmas. And I realized something profound. Christmas was not a single format. It didn't have to always be the same way. It didn't have to involve sacrifice and exhaustion to be valid. I could have this: peace, beauty, choice. After dinner, I went for a walk on the beach. The night was perfect. The sky full of stars, the sound of the sea like a constant lullaby. I sat on the sand and finally, after nearly 36 hours, I turned on my phone. The screen exploded with notifications. 147 missed calls, more than 200 messages. The family group chat had over 500 new messages. My heart started beating fast. Part of me wanted to turn the phone off again, but I needed to know. I needed to see what had happened. I opened Marcus's messages first. They started out desperate. "Mama, where are you? We found your note. This can't be happening. Please answer." Then they turned furious. "How could you do this to us? You left us in a ridiculous position. There are 48 people arriving and there is no food. You are selfish." And finally, the last one sent just an hour ago sounded different. Defeated. Real. "Mama, it was a disaster, a complete disaster. Tiffany is crying. The partners left early. We had to order Chinese takeout, and there wasn't even enough for everyone. We looked like idiots in front of very important people." But more than anything, I realized something. I realized that I never valued what you did. I never understood how much work it was, how much of yourself you gave, and I took it all for granted. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry." I read the message 3 times. There was genuine pain there, real regret. It wasn't perfect. It didn't solve years of toxic patterns, but it was a start. I read some messages from the family group. Tiffany had written long explanations blaming me, but some relatives had responded by defending me. My cousin Anna had written, "Maybe you should have asked before assuming. Ruby is not your employee." Isaiah had sent a message. "Mama is 66 years old. She deserves a Christmas where someone takes care of her for a change. I'm glad she's finally doing something for herself." I stayed sitting on the sand for a long time, the phone in my hands, the waves caressing my bare feet. Part of me wanted to respond immediately. I wanted to explain. I wanted to comfort Marcus, tell him everything would be okay, that we could fix this. But that was the old Ruby, the one who always ran to repair the pain of others, even when that pain was the natural consequence of their own actions. The new Ruby, the one being born on this beach under the stars, knew that responding now would be a mistake. They needed to feel the full weight of what had happened. They needed to sit with the discomfort. They needed to understand, not intellectually, but viscerally, what it meant to plan something important and have someone not show up, to have someone leave them hanging, to have someone prioritize their own needs over theirs. They needed to experience exactly what they had made me feel for years. I turned the phone off again, put it in my bag, and went back to my room. That night I slept deeply. No guilt, no anxiety, just the satisfied tiredness of a day well lived. The morning of the 25th dawned radiant. It was officially Christmas. I woke up with no gifts to open, no noisy family around, none of the traditional chaos that had always defined this date. And I felt completely at peace. I had a quiet breakfast. I went back to the beach. The hotel had organized Christmas activities, yoga on the sand, cocktail classes, a treasure hunt for families. I simply sat under a hut with my book and let the day flow without pressure. Around noon, the woman with the coral hat appeared again. She sat beside me with a knowing smile. "Did you turn the phone on?" she asked directly. I laughed. It was as if she could read my mind. "Yes, last night." "And?" "Total disaster. Chinese food for 48 people. The important partners left early, Tiffany crying, Marcus finally apologizing." "And how did you feel?" I considered the question honestly. Guilty at first, then relieved, and finally, something like justice. Not joy at their suffering, but a sense that finally the consequences caught up with the actions. She nodded wisely. That is exactly what he needed to feel and what they needed to experience. "Are you going to respond?" "Not yet. I'll go back on the 26th. I'll see them then. I need the message to be clear. I am not available on demand. My presence is not an automatic right." "Wise decision," she said, squeezing my hand. "And when you go back, do not apologize. Do not minimize what you did. Do not let them convince you that you overreacted. Stay firm in your boundaries." Her words were a gift, a reminder that the hard part was only beginning. Because it was one thing to escape for 3 days, and quite another to maintain those boundaries when I went back to face Marcus face to face. I spent the rest of the day in quiet contemplation. I walked on the beach for hours. I collected shells. I watched families playing in the water. I watched the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. And at some point during that perfect afternoon, I felt something change inside me. It wasn't dramatic. There was no background music or moment of celestial illumination. It was something more subtle, a quiet certainty that I had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. The Ruby who had arrived at this hotel 3 days ago, scared and guilty, had died. In her place was a woman who finally understood her own value. A woman who knew that true love included healthy boundaries. A woman who would never again sacrifice her dignity on the altar of family duty. On the night of the 25th, I dined in the restaurant again. This time I ordered lobster, something I had never allowed myself because it always seemed too expensive, too extravagant. But that night, looking at the silver sea under the moon, I enjoyed every bite without a hint of guilt. The young waiter, the same one from the previous days, approached at the end of dinner. "Forgive the personal question," he said timidly, "but I notice you eat alone and seem very happy. My mom always says being alone is sad, but you don't seem sad at all." I smiled. How observant this young man was. "Your mom probably never learned the difference between loneliness and being alone," I told him. "Loneliness is when you miss someone. Being alone is when you enjoy your own company. They are completely different things." He nodded thoughtfully. "I'm going to tell her that. I think she could use hearing it." After dinner, I walked through the hotel gardens. There was a small chapel open, decorated with soft lights. I went in, though I'm not particularly religious. There was something about the space that invited reflection. I sat on one of the pews, and for the first time in 3 days, I cried. Not out of sadness, not out of regret. I cried for all the past Christmases where I had smiled while breaking inside. For all the years where I had prioritized everyone except myself. For the young Ruby who dreamed of adventures but sacrificed them all for responsibility. I cried for her, for everything she could never be, because there was always someone more important. And then, when the tears dried, I felt something like forgiveness, not toward Marcus or Tiffany, toward myself, for all the years I had allowed them to treat me as less, for all the times I had said yes when I wanted to scream no, for having taken 66 years to finally choose myself. The morning of the 26th arrived with clouds. The sky was gray. It looked like it would rain. There was something appropriate about that, as if the weather reflected that the parenthesis of peace was ending and that now came the hard part. I packed my things slowly. Every object I put in the suitcase felt like it weighed more than it should, because I knew that with every item I was getting closer to the moment of returning to reality, to the difficult conversations, to the work of rebuilding relationships on completely new terms. At checkout, the receptionist smiled at me. "Did you enjoy your stay, Mrs. Lovelace?" "More than I can express," I replied honestly. "I'm very glad. We hope to see you again." "I'll be back," I said with certainty. "Every year, this is my new tradition." The return trip was long, 4 hours where I mentally practiced what I would say, how I would maintain my boundaries, and how I would not let them manipulate me back into the old patterns. Hattie had been looking after my house. When I arrived around 3 in the afternoon, she was waiting for me in my garden. "Ruby!" She ran to hug me. "You look different. Relaxed, tanned, but above all, you look free." "I feel free," I admitted. Terrified of what's coming, but free. "Marcus has been coming every day," Hattie said in a low voice. "3 times yesterday, twice today. He's desperate to talk to you. Tiffany came once too, but I didn't open the door for her." "Good," I said firmly. "Let them wait a little longer. I need to settle in. I need to center myself before I face them." I went into my house. Everything was exactly as I had left it, clean, orderly. But now it felt different. It was no longer just the space where I served others. It was my space, my sanctuary. And I would never again allow anyone to turn it into an event venue without my explicit consent. I unpacked, took a long shower, made myself some tea, and then, when I felt ready, I turned on my phone completely. The notifications were overwhelming, but now there was a new type of message, not just from Marcus, but from relatives I never expected. My cousin Anna had written, "We need to talk. I felt the same way for years. You are my hero." 2 of my aunts, sisters of my late husband, had sent messages of support. "You did the right thing. We have lived this too. It's time for things to change." Even some of Marcus's friends had surprisingly written, "Bro, your mom is right. What you did to her was wrong." But the message that impacted me most was from someone unexpected. It was from Tiffany's mother, a woman I barely knew because Tiffany rarely mentioned her. "Ruby, it's Patricia, Tiffany's mother. My daughter is furious with me for writing to you, but I need to tell you something. I was once like you. I spent 30 years serving my family without limits, and do you know what happened to me? I got sick. Cancer, accumulated stress that my body couldn't process anymore. I almost died because I never learned to say no. What you did takes immense courage. Do not let anyone convince you that it was wrong. Taking care of yourself is not selfishness. It is survival." I read Patricia's message 3 times. Every word resonated with a truth that hit my chest. I wasn't alone in this. How many women had lived the same thing? How many were still living it? How many would never find the courage to break the pattern? It was 5 in the afternoon when I heard the doorbell. I looked through the window. It was Marcus. Alone. No Tiffany, no kids. He came with flowers in one hand and an expression I hadn't seen on him in years, genuine humility. I took a deep breath. This was the moment. I opened the door. "Mama!" His voice broke immediately. "Thank you for opening. I thought you wouldn't want to see me." "Come in," I said without emotion. I wasn't going to make this easy. I wasn't going to run to hug him and tell him everything was forgiven. That time was over. Marcus walked in, put the flowers on the table, and sat on the sofa where he had been just a week ago, giving me orders about an event he never consulted me on. "I don't know where to start," he said, looking at his hands. "Start at the beginning," I replied, sitting across from him. "Tell me exactly what happened on the 24th. Marcus sighed deeply, and then, for the first time in his adult life, my son told me a story where he was the villain. "We found your note around 10 at night on the 23rd. Tiffany and I had gone to your house to leave the keys for the rented tables. When we read what you wrote, we thought you were joking, that it was impossible. We kept calling you all night. At 6 in the morning on the 24th, when you still weren't answering, we went into real panic." He paused. I saw tears forming in his eyes. "We called every catering service we could find. Everyone was booked or closed because it was Christmas Eve. We tried restaurants, hotels, nothing. Finally, we managed to get a Chinese restaurant to sell us takeout, but they only had enough for 25 people, not 48. "And what did you do?" "Tiffany started calling the guests, canceling, but the senior partners from her firm were already on their way. We couldn't contact them in time. They arrived and found chaos, empty tables, us running around like crazy. The smell of Chinese food from cardboard containers instead of the elegant banquet we had promised. I imagined it, and although I knew I should feel compassion, what I felt was cold justice. The partners stayed 20 minutes out of courtesy, ate a little, and left early with excuses about other commitments. But Mama, I saw their faces. I saw the disappointment, the judgment. Tiffany thinks she lost any chance of partnership. And the worst part is that it was completely our fault." "That's right," I said, without softening the blow. "It was completely your fault. You two planned a massive event without my consent. You assumed my availability. You excluded me from the main table in my own house. You treated me like service staff. And when I told you no, you blamed me for ruining your plans. Plans you should never have made without consulting me first." "I know." His voice was barely a whisper. "I know, and I have no excuse. I've been thinking a lot these days. I talked to Isaiah. He told me some very harsh things. He made me see patterns that I didn't want to admit." "What patterns?" "That I've used you for years. That I've taken everything you give without ever asking what it costs you. That I've allowed Tiffany to treat you poorly because it was easier than defending you against my wife. That basically I've been a terrible son." The tears finally fell down his cheeks. It was strange to see my son, this 38-year-old man, crying like he did when he was a boy. But I didn't get up to comfort him. I stayed seated, waiting for him to continue. "On the night of the 24th, after everyone left, Tiffany and I had the worst fight of our marriage. I told her about the eating in the kitchen thing. I told her that was what broke you, and she defended herself, saying she was just being practical, that you would have understood. But even as she said it, I saw in her face that she knew it was wrong." "And now what?" I asked directly. "Now I want to fix it. I want to compensate you. You cannot compensate for 30 years in one conversation, Marcus. It doesn't work that way." His face fell. "So what? Do you hate me? You don't want to see me anymore?" "I don't hate you," I said firmly. "You are my son, and I will always love you. But the kind of relationship we had, where I gave everything and you took everything, that relationship is dead. If we want to build something new, it has to be on completely different terms." "What terms?" I stood up and went to my bedroom. I pulled out a sheet of paper I had written at the hotel during my last night. I had titled it, "New Rules of Engagement." I handed it to Marcus. He read aloud, 1. My availability will never be assumed again. Any request for my time or labor must be made at least 3 weeks in advance, and you must wait for my response before confirming plans. 2. My house is my private space. It cannot be used for events without my explicit and enthusiastic invitation. 3. If I cook for any family event, it will be because I chose to do so, not because it was expected of me, and I will always have a place at the main table. 4. My time has value. If you need significant work from me, there will be an agreed-upon compensation, or I will simply say no without guilt. 5. Boundaries are two-way. If I cannot assume your availability, you cannot disappear when I need something. 6. Respect is mandatory. Any family member who treats me with condescension, speaks poorly to me, or ignores me will lose access to my presence. 7. I will take vacations whenever I want. I will not ask for permission. I will not feel guilt. My well-being is as important as that of any other member of this family. Marcus finished reading and folded the paper carefully. Can I keep this? It's yours. Share it with Tiffany. Share it with whoever you need to. Those are my conditions. They are not negotiable. I accept them, he said immediately. I accept everything, Mama. Just give me a chance to show you that I can be better, that I can be the son you deserve. You don't need to show me anything now, I said more softly. You just need to keep your promises, through actions over months and years, not words during a conversation. Marcus nodded, stood up and hugged me. This time I hugged him back, because despite everything, he was still my son. And part of truly loving someone is establishing boundaries that protect the relationship instead of destroying it. After Marcus left, Hattie came over. How did it go? Difficult, painful, but necessary. And now what? Now I wait. I wait to see if he really learned something, or if in 3 months we'll be back to the old patterns. Hattie took my hands. Ruby Lovelace, no matter what happens with Marcus, promise me one thing. Promise me you will never go back to being the woman you were before that trip to the beach. I promise you, I said, and I meant it. The following months were interesting. Marcus followed through surprisingly well. He called to ask how I was, not to ask for things. He invited me to dinner at restaurants 3 times. He paid, and he chose places he knew I liked. Tiffany apologized 2 weeks later. Her apology wasn't perfect. There were still justifications, still buts. But there was genuine recognition that she had crossed the line. We didn't become close friends, but the hostility disappeared. The kids, my grandchildren, started visiting me more. Marcus made sure they spent real time with me without the pressure of big events. We played, we talked. They built a real relationship with me, not just with the cook grandma. And I kept taking my vacations. In March, I went to the mountains. In July, I went back to the beach. In October, I visited a vineyard. Every trip was a reaffirmation of my new life, a life where I mattered just as much as everyone else. The next Christmas was different. Marcus asked me in October what I wanted to do. I want a small dinner, I said. Maximum 10 people, and I want it to be in a restaurant, not in my house. And I want to be the one who just arrives and enjoys herself this year. Done, he said, without a second of doubt. And so it was. Christmas in a beautiful restaurant, only close family, me sitting at the head of the table, delicious food that someone else prepared, real conversation, genuine laughter. At some point during that dinner, as I looked at my family around the table, I realized something important. They were getting to know me for the first time, not the servant mother. Me, Ruby Lovelace, a complete woman with dreams, boundaries, and unshakable dignity. That night, when I got home, I took a photo from that Christmas at the beach. I framed it and put it in my living room where I could see it every day. It was my reminder that sometimes the most radical love we can give is the one we refuse to give away for free. That establishing boundaries is not cruelty, it's self-respect. That it's never too late to teach people how to treat you. And that a 66-year-old woman can still change her entire life with one brave decision. So, let me ask you something. If you were in my place, would you have done the same? Or would you have gone even further? Because sometimes the only way to save a family is to dare to break the patterns that are destroying it from the inside out. And I finally dared. If you liked my story and want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me, you can do it through Super Thanks. It would mean a lot. In the comments, tell me which city you're watching from and what time it is, so I can see how far my story reaches. I've added 2 more life stories on the screen just for you. Click one now and let's keep spending time together. Much love! See you soon!